When we get connected and aligned with that organizing principle, things show up at the right time in the right place as they should show up. Now, our job is to be the best vessel we can be for that power to come through. And number two, to be aware enough and to have enough discernment to take advantage of every single thing that presents itself, like being on this podcast.
Good evening. Welcome to my show, Unbound. Today, I have an extraordinary pleasure of hosting two such stalwarts from such a part of world which I actually never thought I'm going to be covering so soon in my journey as a podcaster. Call it serendipity, call it coincidence. Well, it is my biggest honor. They say some of our biggest decisions in life are most often based on something that's called like a gut feeling or intuition. What is intuition? Can we say that it could be an ability to understand something instinctively or without any need to really reasoning it out or logifying it, if I may say? So, if that is true, then can we actually take full responsibility or ownership of our life and events? Everything that we never planned, that is tragic, loss? Well, to unravel many mysterious questions and mysteries of life, I have with me two and totally unstoppable humans, James Arthur Ray and Bersabeh Ray. While James is New York Times best-selling author and philosopher, Bersabeh is an intuitive, the source connector, business leadership and cultural change consultant. A big hello and welcome to my show, James and Bersabeh. How are you guys?
Well, I'm excited with that
I
introduction.
know. Thank
That was very
you.
mystical and mysterious, and so I'm excited to talk with you.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yes, this part of the world we love to talk this way and uncover and unravel. Let's begin with you, James. That just take us through with your life, with your journey. A lot is there in the public domain, a lot is known, but we would also like to know all that is not known.
Well, I'd like to start off because of your intro. Can we take full ownership of all the things that happen in our life? And
Hmm.
that's my words, but that was the flavor of what you mentioned. And my experience is we can take responsibility for our response to our life. Can we take responsibility for creating our lives? I would say no. One of the I've been to the peak and I've been to the pit and everywhere in between, and I've been very blessed, and I've gone through hell, and so the
Hmm.
pendulum has swung in both directions to the extremes. And one of the things that was part of my life was a very dysfunctional vacation called 2 years in prison after a horrible accident that broke my heart
Hmm.
literally. And if you want to get into that, we can, but that's all kind of public knowledge other than the details. But one of the things I realized is I was sitting in solitary confinement right next to death row, by the way, which is a dark, dark place. Is as I reflected back upon my life, I reflected back upon my New York Times best-selling book, Harmonic Wealth. I reflected back on my numerous appearances on Oprah Winfrey. I reflected back on the appearances on Larry King Live and to the Today Show and the Inc. 500 company that I was blessed to
Hmm.
create with my team. And I came to the conclusion, Mamta, that I hadn't done any of it. Now, I thought I had, but as I started to really go deep, I realized all I had really done, and hopefully this resonates with your viewer.
Hmm.
Stick with me here because this is counterintuitive for many of us. I've been very active, very engaged, very busy, and yet I never called Oprah and said, "Have me on your show." Oprah called me. I never called Larry King. Oh, he called me. I wrote a book, and was I responsible for making a New York Times bestseller? Not really. All these things showed up and came to me, and all I had really done is quite simply two things: been totally committed to being the very best person I could be,
Hmm.
consistently and with perseverance. key word, perseverance. Number two, I had taken full advantage of every opportunity that had presented itself to me and given it my best. And so God did the rest. Call it God, call it spirit, call it the higher self, call it universal intelligence. It really doesn't matter,
Yeah.
Brahman. All right. It
Mhm.
really doesn't matter what label you choose. I've dabbled in Hinduism and I love it. I really do. I have a statue of Shiva behind my desk. But nonetheless, um, call it what you will. Let's call it Brahman because we're here. And and I believe that God is an organizing principle in this universe, and that when we get connected and aligned with that organizing principle, things show up at the right time in the right place as they should show up. Now, our job is to be the best vessel we can be
Mhm.
for that power to come through. And number two, to be aware enough and to have enough discernment to take advantage of every single thing that presents itself. Like being on this podcast, I mean, when it's presented to you, then I believe it's part of a divine plan. And you need to give it your best. So that's my opener, and Bersabeh can play with that as well.
Yeah, and you very beautifully woven into, I'm sure now what Bersba is going to speak, because then it's very well falling into the work that Bersba does, right?
Right.
Yes,
She mentioned intuition, sweetie.
I know. Well, mine has been quite an interesting journey as well. To get to my intuitive gifts, I had to go through all the cleanup work. And what I mean by that is I've had a very rough upbringing. I was born in Iran, and I was born at a time where it was the countries were at war. It was Iran and Iraq that were at war, and me and my family had to escape the country, cross the desert, middle of the night, at the risk of being caught and being thrown in prison or killed. And I remember, imagine one of your first childhood memories is having bombs dropped in your neighborhood. It was pretty, traumatic and uh, dramatic. And when we actually lived in Pakistan for 2 years because we had to get our visas before we could come to the States. So that was a fantastic time. When we came to the States, I had to start all over. I didn't speak the language. At the time then in the United States, it was rough. You didn't speak the language, and people looked at you and judged you based upon your culture and where you're from. So that caused a lot of traumas, you can say, more adding more to the traumas of my life. And I ended up getting into uh, you could say gang behaviors with hanging out with the wrong crowds. I got into drugs and alcohol and smoking cigarettes and all that. And because there was no, I didn't see any light at the end of the tunnel, you can say. And the ability to be an intuitive is tapping into the collective consciousness and the collective unconscious. So it's pretty chaotic, and when you're young and you don't realize that that's what you're doing, you take it on as your own. So now it becomes all of this, in the atmosphere on top of your own things too. So I started to self medicate so that I was able to get through it. But then once, James and I met, and his story of when you my even though I've went through all these rough times, one thing I've always kept or wanted to reach is God's presence. It was always with me. It always has been. It's been important to me, and it always came first. And because of that, because of following that and going after it, it's what kept me alive to begin with, and it kept me in the path of finding James and being did you look, you made me emotional.
It's all right, sweetie.
Of finding James and cleaning
Oh,
up, yeah. It's been a quite a journey, and anyone who starts from rock bottom like that, they think that there's no light, they think there is no hope. How can I start all over when I've got all these things that I'm dealing with? And you can. You really can. It's hard work, and it can be done.
Yeah. So my next question, both of you, and any of you can take it really, like you rightly said, when you're already at the rock bottom. But is that scare more for you that am I going to just keep going down further? Or are you self-aware at some level of consciousness that no, things are going to get only better from here? How do you really distinguish it for yourself that this is not the worst or the worst is over? Like, where, which part of your consciousness really give that, if I may say, courage or
Mhm.
that hope that okay, tomorrow is another day and let's look at that side of life.
Mm.
Any of you? Yeah.
Um, I'll talk to that for a
Okay.
moment, because I here's there's a lot of people in this world that feel like they're at rock bottom right now.
Mm.
It's a very uh, tumultuous time in our world, not just in one country, in the world. It's a
Yeah.
very transitional time,
Mm.
and here's my hope to you. Well, let me tell you how I'm qualified to encourage you to have hope. 10 years ago, just 10 years ago, I came out of prison and I was 54 years of age. I was standing in the middle of the desert in Arizona. I was in horrible physical condition. I
Mhm.
had periodontal disease. I'd lost 40 pounds I didn't need to lose. I
Mm.
was alone. I didn't know this young lady yet. I was homeless and cute boy. I was homeless and I was $20 million in debt
Yeah.
just 10 years ago. Well, now fast forward 10 years later, and here's what I'll let me give an addendum here, and then I'll talk about where I am now. But we tend to overestimate what we can do in a year, and we underestimate what we can do in a decade. And so you have to keep the faith. Life without hope is hopeless. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously. And so keep the faith because here, fast forward 10 years later, going on 11, Bersabeh and I have been together now for going on almost 11 years. I'm not
Mhm.
alone
Yeah.
anymore. I'm married to the most amazing woman on the planet. And if you're a married man watching today, you might disagree with me and you probably should, but I'm right nonetheless. And so I believe this in my heart and soul. And we're not homeless as we come to you from our media room here in our home.
Mhm.
The debt is fully retired, and by God's grace, literally, I can tell you I'm in the best health and fitness that I've been in my entire life. Total transformation, actually transmutation, which is
Mhm.
is even a step beyond transformation. And and it hasn't been easy.
No.
It's not supposed to be easy.
Yeah.
But if you look at the lives of those who have been great, the Buddhas, the Krishnas, the Gandhis, I mean, name the names. The Christ for sure. I mean, any of them who have done great things have not had easier lives.
No.
They've had challenging lives. And the challenge is part of the journey because we grow the most in the crucible of challenge. We learn the most, we grow the most, we expand the most. We learn what we're made of and what we're capable of. And let me promise you, from personal experience, not theory, there's a
Mhm.
greater power working through you than anything life can throw at you. And what you have to do is, and here's the word that a lot of people don't like, you have to surrender. Surrender
Yeah.
the reins to that power. Surrender is not a weak word, it's a very powerful word. It takes a tremendous amount of control to surrender. And
Mhm.
I'm not talking about giving up to something outside of yourself. I'm saying embracing something bigger than yourself and allowing that to come through you. And as I look back on my journey, it's been a heck of a ride, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't, I wouldn't trade it for a nanosecond. Bersabeh has told me, more times than once, if you were the guy that was back in the movie The Secret, and back in those days,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be your wife right now. So, because there was a tremendous amount of hubris, and I started to believe I've worked with over 1 million people from 146 countries around the world, and I started to think, oh, I've kind of got it figured out. And so
Mhm.
life came along and said, boom, figure this one out. And it was tremendously humbling, and that's a good thing.
While I agree to most of what you say, James, but I do have a contrary viewpoint here. But I would like to hear
Good.
your thoughts, Bersabeh.
Okay. So mine, I didn't come from the millions. My rock bottom. Okay, so yeah, I feel like I did. I went to the lowest of lows can go. And what happens in that state, for me, from my experience, was I wanted the chance to live a life anew without all the things that I've been through, without being addicted to drugs or alcohol or cigarettes or coming from an abusive background, all kinds of abuse, if name it. I wanted to be able to live a life that didn't have those attachments to it. That was my being rock bottom and saying, what do I want? So what it came down to is making a decision, making a choice. And I think we all come to that point. Now, whether you choose to do it or not is only totally up to the individual. And you can choose to have a better life, but you have to get to that point. And I think each and every single one of us reaches a point in our life where you're at these crossroads. You know that if you keep going down this road, it's not going to be pretty. It's just going to keep getting worse, and it'll probably come to an end sooner than you're supposed to. And then you see the other side, you say, this is my last chance to be able to take this other path and make it to the light. Am I going to do it or not? And that's when you have to make the decision, and you got to go all in. And it's hard to do. I'm not saying it's an easy task at all. And it's possible.
Agree. My question, James, is that when all this inspiration and understanding and wisdom always comes to you in retrospect. When you're going through things, that's not the best period. That's not the best time when your brain or your intuitive self will just give you the right direction because you're overwhelmed. You are very materially overwhelmed.
Mhm.
What is that juncture? What is that point from where you really, really pivot?
Mm.
Really good question.
Yeah.
Intuition, I don't remember who said it. I think it was Einstein. Intuition does not come to an unprepared mind. And I think that's very wise. Here when I was standing in the middle of the desert, homeless, $20 million in debt and alone just 10
Mhm.
years ago, I had to do some deep soul searching because I was angry. I There was a time when I was angry at God, and I write about my entire journey in my latest book, The Business of Redemption.
Mhm.
Um, and I won't go through all that here today, but I was angry at God. I was angry at the government. I was angry at the system. I was angry at the situation, and I knew I had enough um, knowledge to know that wasn't going to get me anywhere except into victimhood,
Yeah.
and I was not going to rise out of it. And so the very first thing I did, being homeless and 20 million in debt, is I called my mom,
Mhm.
and God rest her soul. She knew me very well, my entire life. She knew me, and well, up until she passed a couple of years ago. But I said to her, Mom, I need to borrow $2,500. Now here I am, $20 million in debt, and I'm homeless, and I need to borrow $2,500.
Yeah.
And so she automatically thinks, okay, you need to find a place to rent, and she said, what do you need it for? And I said, I need to take a course, and I need to, it's going to cost $2,500, and I
Yeah.
need to get my head and my heart in the right place. Now that's completely counterintuitive, and
Mhm.
yet I know that your psychology always drives your strategy. How you think and feel is always going to determine how you act, and so it's not easy. It wasn't easy for me. It would have been easy to take that 2,500, which she loaned me, and I said, I'll pay you back. And she goes, I know you will, son. And I did. Um, but nonetheless, it would have been really easy for me to get into desperation And what I would say to an individual who's feeling like they're at rock bottom right now, I know how that feels. And
Mhm.
here's what I can promise you: if you understand what I'm telling you, when you hit rock bottom, literally hit rock bottom, you finally have a firm foundation from which to build, because every significant breakthrough is preceded by a breakdown.
Yeah.
We're going through a breakdown in our world right now. It's very uncomfortable. It's frightening. It's, sometimes it blows your mind to see some of the things that are happening.
Mhm.
And yet, so you can look at that and go, well, everything's going to hell. Or you can look at it and say, no, we're going through hell, and you have to go through hell to get to heaven. Sometimes you have to go through the darkest night, but the brightest dawn always comes after the darkest night.
Yeah.
And that's what I know, Mamta. I know that from experience. It's not just theory. I know that from my own personal life, and from Bersabeh's life too.
Mhm. True.
Yeah. So my question to you, Bersba, in that case is that when do you really start picking up the signs that that this is intuition, that this is some higher power leading me? I, I need to hear myself out. When do you really start taking yourself seriously like that, listening?
To get to the intuitiveness, you
Yeah,
could say yes.
yeah.
That started when I started cleaning up my own stuff, because then you're able to differentiate with, okay, which part is me saying things and which part is feeling from others or a higher source. And the only time where you're able to differentiate and access it truly is to be able to get yourself completely out of the way. And that means that you got to clean up all your unresolved emotional issues, your traumas, all those things. And then you're able, once I started doing that, then it started becoming more clear. Then I was able to do the work that I do with my clients, is the healing and integration that I do with them.
Very interesting. I mean, both of your lives, have existed uh, in different worlds, and yet very, very parallel and similar in so many ways. And now, of course, absolutely together, hand in hand. So it's very, very beautiful. It is a life's job. It's a life's task that people can actually do that, because it's just in your case specifically,
Mhm.
Bersaba, because you just were born into the events,
Mhm.
into the things happening.
Yeah.
Of course, in our part of culture, we call it karma. I don't
Mhm.
know how you, anything that is beyond explanation. The way that we look back at it is that this is not this lifetime, this is something that you're owning it back from previous lifetimes. But in a case like yours, uh, how do you even begin to resolve? So is it again the divine intervention that gives you the plan ahead, that okay, it was planned for you to be into these circumstances and yet come out and evolve yourself? Or would you really credit it to all to yourself and say that this is all my hard work? Because to even get to a point where you are with the right people, with the right counsel, with the right wisdom coming your way, or mentoring coming your way, even that is not a coincidence, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Very good question. Okay, so if I wasn't okay, yeah, I have come to believe, yes, that I've come into this life and here's my karmic path, and these are the situations in life, yeah, that I have to go through in order to get to where I want to get. Now that has become a lot more clear to me now. I could look back on my life and say, okay, I can see why these things happen, because it pushed me in the direction that I'm in now, which makes perfect sense to me. Now, did I do it all? No. The parts that I did do was when I chose. So here's, like, let's say there was a perfect plan laid out, and you always have a choice. Am I going to choose the drugs? Okay, then you're going in the wrong direction. You're going to get smacked around. Or am I going to choose to go towards cleaning up and towards the light? Then it evolves from there. So I have experienced a lot of that, and it's made me believe in past lives, and paying your karma in advance and all those things. I've It's totally led me to believe that all those things are possibly true. I will say that.
I'd love to talk to that issue,
Yeah,
because
I would like to hear from you. Do you resonate with it, or do you have a completely different viewpoint?
no, I have a
Yeah.
first of all, we both believe in reincarnation. It's the only thing that makes sense to me. When I look at
Yeah.
I've been very blessed to be schooled in hermetics and alchemy,
Mhm.
and there's fundamental laws of the universe. And one of the seven laws of alchemy and hermetics is the law of rhythm. It says seasons come, seasons go. Tide goes in, tide goes out.
Yeah.
Pendulum swings right, it swings left. And so you see this all around you. The snake sheds its skin. The caterpillar crawls into the cocoon and is reborn as a butterfly, literally
Mhm.
reborn. The trees shed their leaves and die and come back. And
Yeah.
so it just makes sense to me, and from a quantum physics standpoint, thermodynamics tells us energy can never be created or destroyed. So this physical body, while it is energy, it will disintegrate, but the real me, my true self,
Mhm.
can never disintegrate, and so it's got to go somewhere. Now, here's the other thing that I have to say about karma is if you really diagnose into the Sanskrit, the word karma, it means action and reaction. It's both. And
Mhm.
so here's a fundamental key, that there's an action which is karmic, and then your reaction
Yeah.
determines the future karmic outcome. And that's where we're right in the middle point of with our God-given will to choose. And how are we going to react? Most people don't respond, they react. And
Mhm.
so something happens that's uncomfortable, and I react. I get angry or I get upset
Yeah.
instead of responding, which is different. To
Mhm.
respond is to choose a certain comeback instead of a reaction or a flinch. And so I I see the perfection of why I had to go to prison. Be careful
Mhm.
what you ask for. Please listen to
Yes.
me as a viewer. Be careful what you ask for, because I studied with a Zen master for years and years.
Mhm.
And in Zen, there's a concept called the Bodhisattva. Are you familiar with this? The Bodhisattva,
Yep.
if you're a viewer and you're not familiar, the Bodhisattva is the being who reaches a state of enlightenment and doesn't have to reincarnate anymore, but chooses to come back, man or woman, chooses to come back
Yeah.
to alleviate the suffering of mankind. And um, here's the real kicker on the Bodhisattva: is the Bodhisattva realizes they're not going to achieve the objective, but they come back anyway. They come back anyway, giving of themselves to alleviate suffering. And so
Yeah.
when I was going through my serious tsunami, my Zen master was one of the few people who stood with me.
Mhm.
And he said to me once, James, how can you? And I never told him I wanted to be a bodhisattva. I would have felt kind of arrogant to say that. But he said to me, how can you expect to become a bodhisattva and alleviate suffering in the world if you haven't suffered?
Yeah.
How can you help suffering people if you've never suffered? So be careful what you ask for, because if someone would have told me when I asked to be more awake and aware, like the Buddha said, I'm awake. Um, I didn't know really what I was asking for. If I'd have known that I had to lose everything and crash and burn and go through prison, I may have not asked for that. I'm glad in retrospect I did. And even though
Yeah.
I got mad at God in the process, in retrospect, 2020,
Mhm.
hindsight, I see the perfection. It it took me to a place that was dark, and frightening,
Mm.
and I learned so much and I grew so much, and it was the best place I could ever imagine to practice the things that I had studied and even taught for so long. So that's is that part of my karmic path? Yes. Yes, I know that it is. I don't believe it. I know that it is,
Yeah.
and God only knows what will come out of that, moving forward. And I'm open to that, fully open to whatever that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, in our again, I mean, I'm just drawing these cultural this thing because I of course spot a lot of synergies and resonance in what you're saying, and then it gets left at a point from which I can pick the thread and sort of think that I can complete it. That in our scriptures it's written that keep doing the work and do not be uh, wanting to know, or do not be anxious about the results. Whether or not they'll fall in place is none of your business.
Yeah.
So just to complete what you just said, that okay, this is what my path is, and that's where I have to be. Whether something will come out of it, whether that is the completion, I have to take it forward, not take it forward in this lifetime or next lifetime,
Yeah.
is none of our business. Very beautifully said. My very few quick questions, this was all a part of really getting to know you both even more closely and even more deeply. But I have a set of a few sort of fireside questions. Are you up for it? Can we play
Sure.
that
Sure.
game and just space up the show a little bit?
Sure. Of
Okay.
course.
All right. So, beginning from you, Basma, today as you stand and see yourself, what is your biggest strength or talent which
Ooh.
has helped you reach where you are?
Oh, my biggest strength and talent. Reach me has helped me get me to where I am. I would say my strength and my discipline. My work ethics. Yes. I would say that. Yeah. My work ethics and strength.
And I would add to that, if I may talk, because I live with her 24/7, perseverance. She
Yes.
falls down, she gets back up. She
Yeah.
falls down, she gets back up. And that's
Never giving up, I guess you
yeah,
could sum it up.
yeah,
Yeah.
just
Never giving up.
continuance.
Yeah.
How about you, James?
Um,
Ooh.
I think, well, certainly, I think I mentioned perseverance earlier. That's a big one for me. I
Yes.
I think also God has given me, and I mean that literally.
Mm-hmm.
God has given me a gift to be able to look at a cross section. I
Mm-hmm.
was raised in fundamental Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
I have the utmost respect for. I've studied Kabbalah. I've studied shamanism. I've studied in mystery schools. I've studied Hinduism and Judaism, and I have. Oh, and by the way, business. I was a C-suite consultant at
Yes.
AT&T School of Business,
Mm-hmm.
and we still do business consulting work,
Yes.
and so I'm very diverse, and I have the ability from God. I came in with this to be able to study and synthesize and ferret out from
Mm-hmm.
all these sometimes very complex disciplines. Did I say Hinduism? Complex disciplines. Hinduism is very complex, and I love it. And yet, to be able to take out these nuggets and
Yeah.
find common threads and put them hopefully into a simpler to
Mm.
understand and to apply methodology, and that's, I believe, one of my gifts.
Super. And I think that you've really lived so many lives in this one life. You know, by
Yes.
Yes.
doing all that you've done, I think you've just kind of accelerated your path way too much. Hasn't he pushed the
I
pedals
would
in?
agree.
Yeah.
I would
So
totally
great.
agree.
So if you're aware of your strengths, I'm sure you're aware of your weaknesses too,
Yes.
Yes. Bring it.
one by one.
Okay, I'll start.
You go. I gotta
um,
think about it.
I
I
like that.
I have such high standards for myself
Ooh, okay.
that I often have challenges with people who don't hold high standards for
Mm,
themselves. And so that's something I have to constantly work on. And
mm.
Bersabeh and I talk about this a lot
Yeah.
because we're extremely disciplined and extremely committed to to our life, our entire life is our spiritual practice. We don't have a
Yeah.
Sunday or a one day a week. Everything is a spiritual practice.
Hmm.
And so and it's very disciplined and very organized. And so for me, when someone is really scattered and chaotic, I have to watch myself. That's one of the things I need to work on because I'm like, come on,
True.
get it together.
True. True. Mine would be okay. So I can be probably too strong. Yes, I could practice definite.
Stubborn,
Yes, stubborn,
controlling.
too strong, and that could be a vice. Especially I could definitely be more receptive in the feminine energies. I could definitely be better in that. Yeah, that's my downfall.
She's a Capricorn. She's working on it.
I was just gonna come to that. So in that case, are you a Virgo?
My,
No, he's a
I'm a
Scorpio.
Scorpio. Um,
My
so
God, how are you taking it?
I'm
actually,
a Capricorn. We
yeah,
actually
we're
work
actually
pretty
very
well.
compatible. And
Yeah.
if you look
Yeah,
at sun sign comparisons, we work very well together.
yeah,
Now we have some vast differences. She's an earth sign. I'm a water sign.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
tend to be more emotional, and I
and I'm
move
not.
move more quickly. She moves slow. She's an
Slow.
earth sign.
Mm.
But no, we
Yeah,
work very very well together.
yeah.
Beautiful. Great team. Great work. All right. So my next set of questions to you is then what have been, I mean, of course, you've treaded many, but if you look back at life, then what has been that one biggest challenge or
Hmm.
biggest fear that you had to really overcome to be where you are today?
Go ahead.
Ooh, oh, there's so many.
The biggest one.
I think one of the biggest challenges, and I'll do my best to get through this because it's going to be pretty hard, um, that a lot of people deal with, and that's sexual abuse. And that's been one of because it makes you feel anybody that's hold on that's experienced that knows that it's very hard to not be tainted in either direction. It's very scarring. And I would say you can experience it all in you again. So that's my positive message on that as I come out and share with the world.
No, but that's a big deal in today's world too.
Yeah, and
So
it's unfortunate
it's
because
unfortunate.
when I work with my clients, I learned that it's more um, than you would like to think, and it's horrible. And a person feels scarred, and they can't be how they want to be in a relationship, if they can even be in a relationship in a marriage. And yeah, and you can. The great news is that you can get through it, you can heal it, and you can put it behind you. And one thing's, how can it be as if it never happened? And I say yes, you can work to get it there. So
Wow.
that's
That
my
gives us
that's
that gives us a lot of hope, Barsaba.
I
Thank
hope
you so
so.
much.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
it does.
it gives her the compassion to work with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what my Zen master said to me. Because she suffered, she has
Yes.
such a
Yeah.
compassion for those that she
Mhm.
works with who have suffered the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
type of things.
Yes.
Can I go a step further if I have your allowance on this?
Okay, go for it.
Yeah. Just if you're comfortable.
Sure.
Otherwise, no this thing. Does it come back?
Does it come back? Okay, so for me to say absolutely not, that's not the case, and not like it used to. It will never be charged like it was. And what it has, I'll tell you what it has taught me. It has taught me what a sexual relationship is not,
Yeah.
and I know now what I've learned with him. As I'm
Yeah.
gonna get emotional. I'm gonna do my best to get through it. Is that is far more beautiful than what was introduced to me at such a young age. And
Yeah.
if I hadn't had that experience at a young age, I would have never been able to experience the light side of it, of what it actually is supposed to be. So
Yeah.
that's the perfect plan, you can say, to look at it from a higher perspective. And yes, you could get to a point where that's no longer there, and it's a beautiful thing when a person gets there from that.
Yeah.
We say that we do a lot of work in relationships as well as
Mhm.
every other arena,
Yeah.
and one of the things we believe is that sex is an acronym for sacred energy
Energy.
exchange.
Yeah.
Sacred
Yeah.
energy exchange, and it
Mhm.
is sacred,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
many, if not all, traditions tell us that in one way,
Mhm.
shape, or fashion.
Yeah. Has it made you more forgiving, Basaba?
Yes. I think all of the sufferings and struggles that I've gone through definitely helps me in the work that I do with people, is because I know where they're coming from. I've experienced it, I've lived it, and I've gotten through it. So I know exactly how to help them. And I can always I have that understanding to be able to take their perspective of where
Yeah.
they're coming from and how they grew up, what their circumstances were, and we all share the same sufferings on so many levels, which is really it's sad. And yet if you could get to the other side of them, then to see the beauty of why it happened to you the way it did, as horrific as it was, then it
Yeah.
makes life that much more sweet. It makes it that much more fruitful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm going to quickly just jump into my rapid reflex round where
Okay.
I would request you to give me an answer, maybe in a word or a sentence, and not more than that. So, can we get started with this one?
let's
Yes,
go.
this is fun.
So, how we're going to play it is because usually I have like one guess. So, whosoever gets it first.
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
The game.
All right. When in doubt, you like to.
Dance.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Okay. Never have you ever.
Never have I ever smoked a cigarette.
Oh, true.
Mm. One thing you wish parents never said to their children.
Maybe you'll only go to prison for a couple of years.
Oh, that's a
Uh,
horrible one.
That was
no, we're not taking that,
yeah.
please.
Oh,
Oh no.
that's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
How
Oh,
It's a
about
very it was a painful time.
okay, okay. All right. One thing you would like to change about the education system, maybe.
is
Bring God
to
back into the school system.
yeah, I like that.
Period.
Yes.
All right. One thing you do as a part of first thing in the morning in the day.
Meditate.
Stretch.
Complete this sentence for me. Love to you is one word.
One word.
Sacrifice.
Ooh.
Success to you is.
Are we winning this game?
Who's winning? Who's
I'm
got
not
more
giving a
points?
count. I'm not. After editing the episode, I'll tell you who's won.
Suc- Success to me is taking the first step in the direction of your own choosing.
So in that case, if not an intuitive, you would be Barsaba. This is for you.
Oh, I'd be a painter.
Oh,
Mm.
nice.
Yeah.
She's
I
Okay.
very
paint.
good.
I paint on the
She's
side.
very talented.
What about you, James? Challenges to you is or are? Just one word.
Growth opportunities
Mm.
All right, and your life purposes.
to minimize human suffering and to maximize happiness and fulfillment.
Yeah.
All right, and your right path is.
The one that
This.
God has tells me continuously to take. That I get from intuition and from the voice.
This is your right. This is your right path.
This is my yeah. I'm on my right path.
I'm on my right path.
I feel very
Yeah.
very very confident and blessed in that.
Yeah.
All
True.
right, and Barsaba, for you, is this like one thing which is this is exactly what my journey is. This is exactly what my path is.
Oh yeah. This is definitely the life that we're living now. This is it.
Thank you so much, James and Bersabeh. You guys have really come unbound. I'm so glad we could do this. If I were to tell you what time of the morning it is, then it'll
Oh
be nice.
my goodness.
It's 3:30 a.m.
Oh my
Oh
here.
wow.
goodness. Wow.
Yeah, but nonetheless, it's been a true honor, like I said, even at the start. And I don't know where my life's bigger, higher purpose really is, but with this podcast and getting the opportunity to have guests like you, I think I'm on the right track. I just
Right.
feel very humble, satisfied, and very complete in doing whatever is getting done through me. So thank you so much for allowing this, for accepting it, and thank you so much for coming unbound with me, sharing your journey, your joy, and I really wish you more and more unbounded success ahead.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so
for
much. We'd like to give a gift to your viewers if you're open to that. Um,
Absolutely.
my New York Times
Oh
bestseller
yeah.
is called
Mhm.
Harmonic Wealth, and it's about how harmony and well-being
Mhm.
in the 5 key areas of your life: financial, relational, mental, physical, spiritual. And if your viewers will go to harmonicsuccess.com
Yeah.
forward slash book,
Yes.
they'll automatically get a free e-copy of the
Mhm.
book plus the audio
And the
a-
movie.
and a full feature film that we shot. So we'd like to give that gift. You're doing great
Yeah.
work. We appreciate you and your
And
viewers.
yes.
And
Thank you
so
for having us.
if they'll just
Thank you
go to that.
so much. I'm going to be the first one, my
Okay.
own audience, to go and get that one. Or better still, I would really look forward to my signed copy sometime. I don't know where and how, but
I can't sign
I
an
just,
copy, but when we come to India, we'll look
Yes.
you up.
Yeah.
all right.